Okay, welcome to the best FPS template aiming tutorial. We're just going to jump straight in, load up the template, and under replicated storage into Blaster, we're going to find our constants. And before we start, I'm just going to press play so I can explain a few things. Now, if we bring out our gun, you can see our view model is positioned in a certain way to the camera, and that when we move around, it bobs up and down. Now, we're going to use that to manipulate or reverse engineer Roblox's code and use it to our advantage. Now, in constants, if you go to view model offset, if you change these numbers around, like so, you will see that the view model changes. See, now as you can see that the view model is almost in an aiming position. Now, if you change the way your auto blaster or blaster looks, this method will work just fine. You're just gonna have to mess around with the numbers to get it where you want. That being said, we're gonna get it as good as possible for this tutorial. That's pretty good. I'll keep it. All right, now that we have our numbers here that we're going to use, we are going to copy and paste and paste. Okay. We're not pasting. Okay. All right. We are going to toggle this out. We need to change this back to the original. 1.3. So let's make some space. We're gonna make an aim offset. So let's make that and create a new C frame, and we'll plug in our numbers. 0.3. Now we're going to be lerping from this offset, or rather this offset, to our aim offset. So we're going to need like a transition, like how fast the transition is. So I'm going to create another constant here, and we'll say aim transition speed, and we'll make that equal 4. You can also mess around with this depending on your game needs. So that's it for constants. So let's go now into our scripts and find view model controller. And we'll go down to self, and we'll say aiming equals false, and then we'll say aim progress equals 0. Now this update function is where everything's going to work. So, but first, before we get into that, we're going to make a couple new functions. We're going to say view model controller start aiming, and then we'll reference our self equals true, and then we'll make one for when we stop aiming. Stop aiming. Equals false. Okay, so let's go back into our update function. And let's create some space. We'll say if self dot aiming, then now we're going to do the aim progress. Aim progress equals math.min or self dot aim progress, and then we'll plus delta time and multiply that by our new constant, aim transition speed 1. Then we'll say else equals math dot max aim progress, and then we'll minus delta time, and then multiply that by our transition 0. All right, now down here we're going to make a few variables. We'll say local, we'll just call it lerp frame, and we'll make that equal to cframe.new lerp, and then we'll lerp our view model offset dot position to our aim offset dot position, and then self dot aim progress. Okay, so now we'll create another variable. We'll call this one final frame, and we'll say camera.cframe, multiply that by our lerp frame, and we'll say or camera.cframe, and then we'll multiply that by our view model offset, and then multiply that by our bobbing C-frame. Okay, so now we'll come down to here, and we'll take this out, and we'll say final frame. Now we're going to want some bobbing when we aim, so we're just going to add it, bobbing offset. Now we don't want it to be bouncing everywhere, so we're going to tune it down a notch. So we're going to divide that by 5. All right, so that looks good. Now we need to reference our inputs, and to do that, we're going to go to Blaster Controller, and now we're going to come down to Self, and we'll say aiming equals false. Now we're going to go all the way down to initialize, and then we're going to find our input began, and we'll come down here, and then we'll say if input object dot user input type equals enum mouse button 2. Then we'll reference our aiming equals true, and then we'll reference our view model controller, and then start aiming, and then we'll pass true. Okay, now we need to make a table.insert for input ended. So we're going to come down here and say table.insert, and then self.connections. We'll say user input service dot input ended colon connect function, say if input equals enum, then self dot aiming equals false. Controller stop aiming, pass false. Okay. That should do it. So let's test it out. Okay, our view model's in the right spot. Let's see if we aim. The transition's pretty smooth. Yeah, I like it a lot. Yeah, it's not jittery. It's very smooth. Could definitely make it a lot better, but it's nice. Switch to the pistol. All right, I think that just about does it. That's the end of the video. If you liked it, like, comment, subscribe, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.